worked. How about that? All right.
Yay.
All right. Well, I'm super glad everyone was able to come. I know it feels like to me like it's been forever since we did this because of the month off last month.
Yeah.
It just feels like we haven't done this in a long time. For next month, I am hoping to sort out our next couple meets to see between the Schmelter's property and Casey's yard, just depending on, you know, what her parents have going on and what Casey has going on, and that way we can meet in person, and it'll buy us a month to see if anything changes with meeting in a group of 10 or less with the state. So, but hopefully, if it all works out, I'd like to meet in person next month, if for those of you that are good with that, and for those of you that don't want to, I think that I'm gonna just like maybe have something live recording that you can pop into and view it, maybe like a private like Facebook Live link or something, so you can view it from home if you can't make it or don't want to be in a group right now, which I totally would understand. But yeah, that's all of my updates. Does anyone have any updates they want to share before we get started?
I know Jen was mentioning that it would be nice to like get together in person. Like she's looking for that. And I think for me, it just, I would say probably every day I feel differently about what I'm doing, let alone every month. But I think that's an awesome option to have like something streaming maybe or something.
Yeah, for sure. And then, of course, for anyone who did come, we would have the precautions of like being spaced out, and we probably just would skip the shared food option for now, you know, just to be safe so that everyone's comfortable. But yeah, so that's an option for the next couple months, is kind of alternating between the different properties that have been so graciously offered. Hi, Parker. Okay, so I thought that we could just get started with the moon talk and use that as our jumping off point, if Hannah is so willing to do so.
Yes, I have a little paragraph to read. All right, so this is the full moon in Aquarius this month. And an Aquarius moon brings a yearning for free expression and individuality. Honor the Aquarian nature of standing up for what you believe in and supporting the underdog. Ruled by Uranus, this energy also supports innovative thinking and understanding the group. Watch out for erratic thoughts and feelings, and instead try to find a common ground with those around you. Not usually a good time for hatching plans, but Aquarius' detached nature can help you to feel free to change directions if you need to and to release. And ultimately, this moon can bring unexpected changes that can be emotionally upsetting. So open-mindedness and flexibility will help you adapt to changing conditions and take advantage of exciting new opportunities. So kind of heavy for me, but I think that the biggest takeaway too is just being able to be open-minded and flexible with everything coming into your thoughts.
I have to laugh when it says to watch out for erratic thoughts, because I'm like, that's just my head at all times. How am I supposed to know the difference? Okay. Thank you, Hannah. I appreciate you sharing that for me. I'm going to just attempt to show my screen so that we can look over the guide. Last time when I was just trial running with this before we got on, I was having an issue with being able to go back to the screen after presenting. So if I leave, I'll just be coming back after. So if I go anywhere, don't worry, I'll be back. All right, so I'm going to just check with you to make sure you can see everything before I get started. All right, can you see my screen at all yet?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay, cool. All right, can you see me now?
Hot, yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so as you know, the theme this month is menstrual wisdom, and it was going to be menstrual wisdom and Shakti, which I ended up taking that out for the sake of keeping it minimal and so that we could focus on this topic, which I feel like is sort of, it can be intense, it can be, you know, varied, it can have a lot of details, and I really wanted to give Bonnie especially the space to have the time to discuss everything that she wanted to bring up, and so we're just sticking to menstrual wisdom for this month, and we can incorporate Shakti, you know, another time. So in this volume we have the full moon in Aquarius information along with a tarot spread that, rather than being related to the full moon of the month as normal, we're doing a sacred womb tarot spread. There's some menstruation wisdom on pages 4 and 5, a ritual for your moon time, which is super simple but very mindful. There's a lunar cycle tracker, which if any of you have trouble printing that, I can just send you the doc to your email if you would rather, or you can find it on the Lunar Abundance website. There's a poem on here and then a note page. This little saying here by Lucy Pierce says, in order to reclaim our full selves, to integrate each of these aspects through which we pass over the course of our lives, we must first learn to embrace them through our cycles. So I won't go over this full moon information. It is the full sturgeon moon because Hannah just talked about things, but there's some more information from Cafe Astrology in there if you would like to read it later. And the tarot card pulled for this month was the Emperor. It will have you feeling as if things are slipping away from your control this month. Big surprise. The tarot cards of the last few months have thrown things into turmoil and have provoked lots of important changes in your life. The Emperor's aim is for you to attempt to regain control of each situation you face. Here is the tarot, and it has questions like, what represents your cycle this month? What are you releasing? How can you better connect to your womb space? What does your womb need from you? And how you can honor your individual femininity. So we have on here as well in the menstrual wisdom section a herbal infusion recipe that's from Moon and Rock, and then Megan Moon has some information here on some more eco-friendly and healthy ways to release your flow. And then I just put in a little yoga pose there. I like to do certain yoga poses during my cycle to help because I tend to have a lot of cramping myself. So I put that in there in case anyone else is interested. There's a turmeric tea for cramps and some various links here. So there's a more in-depth section from what I posted from Megan above. You can find that in her blog post, which has even more information in the first link there. There is a yoga flow with Adrienne podcast from Medicine Stories, and some other various reading for you. This ritual is super simple. It just is really about, you know, like if you use a Luna cup or Diva cup, for example, or, you know, however you choose to collect your blood, you can just kind of save some of it and, you know, bury it under a tree, have some wine with you, light a candle, maybe write a thought out in your journal, whatever form of mindfulness you would like to do. But this is just a way to really connect with your own cycle. For me, doing something like this would be telling myself the intention of, you know, putting more thought and mindfulness into my own body's cycles, into not just taking the ibuprofen every time I get a cramp, and really embracing my menstrual cycle rather than it being something that happens to me. And I feel like ritual is a great way to really honor this part of our nature. Here is the menstrual cycle tracker. you would just basically write in, and I think Bonnie has some of her own to show you as well, but you would just write in what your moon phase is in, like, the first day of your cycle is number 1, and the 28th day is the last day of your cycle, assuming that that's roughly the amount of days you have. And you would fill in what moon date, or I should say what moon phase you're in those days of the cycle. I'll quickly read this poem by Lucille Clifton. If there is a river more beautiful than this, bright as the blood-red edge of the moon, if there is a river more faithful than this, returning each month to the same delta, if there is a river braver than this, coming and coming in a surge of passion, of pain, if there is a river more ancient than this, daughter of Eve, mother of Cain and of Abel, if there is in the universe such a river, if there is somewhere water more powerful than this wild water, pray that it flows also through animals, beautiful and faithful and ancient and female and brave. And then lastly, a notes section. Alright, I'm going to attempt to close this without getting kicked off. I didn't get kicked off, I think. Hooray. Okay. I think last time it was because I was testing it without actually being in a meeting, and so it wasn't like taking me back to anything, is my theory anyway. Okay, before we jump over to Bonnie, I have a brief reading I wanted to share with you. I like to incorporate some kind of...
And yeah, I will be completely honest when I say that rest and maybe some like nourishing herbal infusions and some bone broth, and I'm not getting sick anymore. So quite literally, I think rest was a huge deal in this. If you think about everything in nature, hey John.
Hey.
So every other thing in nature has a cycle, right? And every other thing in nature rests at some point, whether that's hibernation or it's winter and things are dying. We're not outside of nature, we're part of that. And we are not built to be in a patriarchal society that doesn't allow us to slow down. So I really can't say enough about rest. And it goes back to this vision where they talk about if you're used to surrendering and you're used to saying, this is good for my body and this is what I'm supposed to be doing, and the people around you respect that, then it's so much easier than if you have to unpack all of the self-worth stuff related to resting, right? So I had to unpack like, oh, I'm not doing enough here or enough there, and I have all this guilt. You can't essentially rest if the whole time that you're like physically resting, you're emotionally beating yourself up. And that is a huge issue that I see in the postpartum. So it goes throughout your whole life. So there is a podcast, I think in the PDF you made, Catherine, you put down Mythic Medicine podcast. There's actually a second episode now. The one that you referenced is really good with Cammie, but there's a second one that is with Dr. Elizabeth Wade, and that's episode 63. And she specifically has a whole nother like outtake on the importance of rest when you're bleeding. So quite literally, the physical change in your uterus when it's full of blood, it's much bigger, it's much heavier, and you have to be aware of even picking heavy things up, if that makes sense. So just like if you had an injury or something, Or like when you're pregnant and your uterus is heavier, you have to be careful to doing certain things. So it sounds really simple, but rest is not simple. How am I going to collect this blood so I don't leak so that I can go on with my day? So it goes back to that surrender and rest. So going back to the rest, so doing the castor oil packs or doing an oil massage like after your bath can kind of be something you do while you're resting, so you feel like you're doing something, but you're taking care of yourself and resting, if that makes sense. Some other like ritual type things. I should ask, do you know how to do a castor oil pack?
Are you talking to me?
Yeah, no. Specifically about you. Okay, so I can send Amber from Mythic Medicine just did a good video of how to do a castor oil pack, so I will send that. And my understanding is that castor oil in general is helpful, but if you infuse that mugwort in it or the yarrow in it, I think what I ended up doing was a yarrow violet leaf combination castor oil. So
I have yarrow too. I feel like an apothecary, except I'm fresh out of Yamogi.
yeah. So yeah, yarrow would be good too. Jen, how is that as a tea? Is that? I don't think I really hear people drink it as a tea.
I like it as a tea, but it definitely, some people wouldn't like it. But I had it right before I started a period, and I was like craving it. So like it could be that, you know, people start to crave that around their cycle.
Totally, yeah. So the other thing, again, my label is like messed up on this, but this is, I think it was Wild Sisters Apothecary. I can't remember. But this is a nettle, red raspberry leaf, and spring water glycerin. So it's like a tincture. So if you think about how we always talk about red raspberry leaf for the uterus related to pregnancy and postpartum, it's kind of applying that same principles there. Nettle is obviously very nourishing as well. That's a very common nourishing like infusion herb that you can like drink a lot of because it's like more like a food-like quality. So that is, this is something I just found on Facebook, and it was a Black-owned apothecary, so I thought I'd make a purchase there. So Etsy is a good place to look for that stuff. I'm sure, I know Rebecca at Hawthorne and Violet is now carrying, I'm trying to remember the name of it, but it's a specific line related to women's wellness, and I know she has the tinctures now.
Herblore?
Which one? Herblore, yeah. Herblore, yeah. Herblore. So she has like specific women's wellness stuff. I'm sure she would have something as well too. But so when it comes to pain though, I think these things can be helpful. But I also think that there's what I've heard a lot from other people too is really surrendering and like really having a day, like even if it's just one day where you like quite literally do nothing, can make a world of difference. And if you're charting, then you'll have an idea of when that may show up. And maybe, you know, some people spot before they have the first day of their bleed. So day one of your charting is your first full flow, where you have to like use a pad or a cup or something. So some people have a little spotting before that kind of like gives you a warning. but maybe it's not even day 1. Maybe it's day 2 or 3 that you find a way to do completely nothing, as minimal as possible. And I'll have to say, like, I've missed out on fun things, but I knew that it was for the greater good, and I wouldn't have enjoyed those fun things anyways. And I have found that really, really resting while I'm bleeding, I have so much more energy to tackle whatever it is afterwards than like in comparison to like trying to just get through your bleed and do your normal things, and then you didn't rest and you have no place to bounce back from. So you're just still tired, you know what I mean? So even though it seems like you're not doing anything and it seems like that's a lot to rest, it really does help you have more energy in the future. And then, you know, a lot of people have also said just quite literally like accepting that pain is part of their cycle, and, you know, a combination of that rest and, you know, supporting yourself herbally and things like that. And a lot of times people don't have as much pain if they're working with their cycle versus working against it. It's not always possible to plan these things. Like, even if you chart and you know like what's coming, you think you know what's coming, like you could be thrown a curveball. Like, we're affected by different things, right? So, I mean, there's been a lot of people saying that this COVID stuff has affected their cycle because they're just like stressed out, you know? So stress does affect your cycle, can affect your cycle one way or another. But, you know, you kind of have an idea that it's coming if you're charting. Does that answer your pain question?
Yeah, I think it gave me some new ideas of things to try, for sure.
Yeah. And, you know, let us know. I wish there was like something like foolproof, you know what I mean? But I think it's different for everybody. I mean, I have read in multiple places that you really shouldn't have pain, that pain is not a normal part of a healthy menstrual cycle, at least not debilitating pain, but I mean, I know I have some pain, so it's, if we didn't have pain though, would we rest? I mean, probably not as well, you know? So there's a couple ways to look at it. So the other ritual type things that you can do is, like you talked about, like different types of yoga. I like how you put in the guidebook with the yoga with Adrian, I think it was, for cramps. I do like to do a lot of like seated yoga, like upper body stuff, and journaling. You know, journaling your dreams is really a good thing to do. They say that day 3 of your cycle, you are the most like psychic, and you can really tap into things, and your dreams can get very vivid. So, but if you're busy, and you don't know what day of your cycle it is, and you're not really tapping into that, you could bypass that. And that goes back to when you hear that, you know, in the past, women would go and bleed together, and then they would come back from that red tent, and they would actually tell society what they should do for the future, and everybody would listen to them. And it was that time where they received that information to help make decisions for the whole society. So there's a term called bleed on it. So like if you have a heavy decision to make and your bleed is coming, you could really, you know, take some time and bleed on that, kind of like sleep on it, and see how you feel afterwards. And you could even put intentions out there, like I'm looking for information, and really be aware of your dreams and in your journaling and things like that.
I love that. I'm going to use that from now on and just see how uncomfortable Justin gets when, like, he's like, We need to get a new tire for the car. I'm gonna go bleed on it to see what he says every time.
Yeah, that reminds me, there's this little quote in Christine's book that I wanted to read because it was just so like completely ridiculous. If I didn't lose it. But yeah, I think the thought of bleeding on it is a good concept because we're not the same every day. And
preach.
Yeah. In Wild Power, they have this, I took a picture of it and put it in the event, but they have this visual here that really talks about how if you're somebody who ovulates on the full moon and bleeds on the new moon, which was kind of like traditionally how women bled before there was like an introduction of like artificial light and like hormones and everything and plastics and things like that, that there really is like a cycle with your energy too. So charting doesn't have to be just about fertility or preventing pregnancy. It's about figuring out when you have the most energy. So typically after you bleed, you're like stepping into like springtime where you are ready to like explore some more and take some risks, and it's kind of like your say yes time. Like, I'm, interested in doing this. You have a little bit more energy. And then ovulation at like the full moon is like your inner summer where you're like ready to party, because the sun or the moon is out and it's actually brighter outside, you can party all night long. But that's when you have the most time you have the most energy to be productive. So when I like created my whole entire preparing for the phenomenon of postpartum program, like within a couple days, I was ovulating. Like that would not have been able to happen if I was menstruating or like the end of my luteal phase. So if you chart and you can figure out this, then you have a chance to really figure out when you should be like exploring different projects, when you should be doing even certain things like in your parenting. This is like the connection that I want to make for like within my business is like teaching parents how to parent through your cycle. So I'm not going to take my kids to the zoo when I'm bleeding. And I'm going to respect that I need that time to rest and plan something like that when I have the energy and I actually can enjoy that, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? To set yourself up for success. And that can be applied to having a business. So where I learned this information from Catherine Eden, she specifically works with supporting your sacred business through your menstrual cycle. So she talks a lot about that. Like, you're not able to put things out 24/7. You're just gonna burn out. And then after you ovulate, you're kind of like coming down. Your energy is coming down a little bit, and this is a time. So this is our PMS time, right? Where you meet your inner critic. And when you start to like really get on your case about, and you criticize yourself a lot, this is when I'm also very irritated with my children. I have like no patience. And it was really helpful for me to identify this because in the moment, you're like, I never can stand my kids. They're always so annoying. But then I realized, no, I actually can really like, when I'm on my bleed, I'm able to like tap into that like love and oxytocin. And when I'm ovulating, I have so much patience with them and we can do fun things that I don't normally want to do. So it's not always like that. I'm not always irritated. But I didn't even realize that until I looked at my charting. And that was one of the things that I specifically write down for me is when I am irritated with people. So that is when I feel that is like after ovulation and that luteal, and that's the like PMSy time. And then as you get ready for your bleed, that's when you start like separating from the world and surrendering. There was a day that I think that was the day we were talking about getting pedicures, and I was like so confused on what I should be doing related to COVID and everything. But I realized after that it wasn't even that. It was that like I felt myself like separating from society and going in my cave and getting ready for my bleed. Which in the time I was like, I don't know what this is, but I was able to recognize that as an afterthought. So this book talks a lot about that energy and all of that related to your cycle. And I really like, there's a lot of really great books out there. I know you put a list out or a link, and I hadn't even heard of any of those books. So there's tons of great books out there. If you're someone who is trying to get off the pill, or you know somebody that's trying to get off the pill, there's the book called Beyond your cycle. Testosterone on this chart would be its highest at ovulation, and then you get a little peak again right before you're about to bleed in your luteal phase. And what I learned was that, so at your ovulation time, when you have your peak in testosterone, what you're looking for is connecting with somebody to procreate. That's just what your body's looking for, right? So you're more interested in finding somebody somebody that is attractive to you in the sense of somebody that you want to create a baby with. But that tick up in testosterone right before you bleed in your luteal phase, people have actually found that you're often attracted to a different type of person, because that is more of like your wild woman phase, where you are less interested in connecting and you're more interested in exploring and trying new things. So again, just to reiterate, we're not the same every single day. Also, when it comes to libido, I think that there's so many things that can affect it, but at least knowing that your hormones change regularly. But also know that we are not like other animals where we only have sex to procreate, right? And this isn't directly related to menstruation, but it's also a fun fact that most people don't know about, but the clitoris only function is for pleasure. So a lot of times libido issues can be related to not knowing what is pleasure for you. So that's another aspect there. If you are on hormonal birth control, it has pretty much been proven that it can affect who you're attracted to. So because it changes, if I remember correctly, related to pheromones, it's in this book. She talks a lot about that, but it can actually change who you're attracted to. And people have found that when they get off the pill, they're like, wait, why am I with this person? So that can be really interesting too when it comes to libido. if you're on the pill, your libido is going to be reduced. It just simply is biology related to the side effects. If I remember correctly, the pill actually reduces your ovaries, so the actual size of the ovaries. So those are the things off the top of my head related to libido. I'm not a doctor, and I am not an expert in this, but the other thing, if you're breastfeeding, that obviously affects your libido, so, and stress. But you shouldn't have the expectation that you should be interested in sex every single day like men are. That's just not typically how it is for women, simply because our hormones are different. So knowing those things can be helpful, in my opinion. Let's see. Any questions?
All right, so I have been wanting to start like tracking, but you know, like my period is like kind of still non-existent. I had one in June. Yeah, I had one in June. I haven't had one since then, but should I just like start it with the cycles and just see?
Start it with the moon. This is like the perfect time to chart. I would definitely start. I would suggest this. Journal. Yes, I would totally suggest this. There are other ways to do it, but I feel like this is a really nice way, because then you also, I don't know if I showed you, you also have these like journal sections where you can write a little bit more. So like maybe you just have your symbols there, but then you can like write more notes here. So for each day. So I wrote things because I was specifically like addressing like, you know, how I felt and sickness and all of that. But you could do lots of things there, or you could just make it as like it's your journal too, and every day, you know, add something there. But I think this is a really great way to do it, and it helps you easily do it with the moon. So some of these can get confusing. So like, I'll show you a blank one of these. So this is the blank chart for this planner journal that I'm using right now. And it's not set up with the moon phases already in it. So I have to add that because that's the way I like to chart. You don't have to chart that way. You can chart with day one of the cycle is day one of your period, but I was having the same issue. I didn't know when to start. So that's why doing it with the moon makes sense. Yeah. I would say if you're looking to, if you're looking specifically to prevent pregnancy or to get pregnant, it's also important to take your temperature, your basal body temperature. And that's something I'm doing on the separate right now. But I have seen photos of people use their chart like this, and around the edges they have the different temperatures, and then you see it all the way around. It's beautiful. It's like really intense. But these can be like so creative and colorful. But yes, I would do that as well if you're because this is what's going to tell you ovulate. So you can track your cervical mucus every day, but you need the second check of your temperature to like confirm ovulation. And the fifth vital sign, she really breaks down fertility awareness and how to really track all of those things. So she uses the mucus, the temperature, and then I don't believe that she makes you do the internal assessment of the height of the cervix. Some people say you have to do that to make sure you have it accurate, but she does it more, I believe she does it more of a situation where it's just the temperature and then the cervical mucus, and she breaks cervical mucus down into dry, So like you're either dry, you have non-peak mucus, or you have peak mucus, which is like those egg whites ovulation, and then you have you probably have a couple of days of dry, and then you will have your bleed. So, and she teaches you how to identify that from when you go to the bathroom and wipe with toilet paper. So it's the sensation, which I really like, because a lot of people don't like to actually insert their finger and check their cervical pipe, and it's hard to figure out if you're not used to doing that. But you go to the bathroom, you might as well like have a thought like, wait, did that feel wet? Did that, and she really talks you through that in this. There's been multiple times where I like go back and reference like, wait, what am I supposed to be doing? Or like, I'll even reference like, is there a chance that if we had sex, I could get pregnant? Okay. And this is the book that I am going back to. What I'm not reading in this book that I am hearing is that you have the chance to ovulate twice in a cycle. And Catherine Eden, who I put her website down, she has free resources for charting on her website as well. So if you don't want to buy something, you can print off her stuff to start with. Her stuff is this. But she talks about how you can ovulate on your natal moon. So your natal moon is the moon that you were born under. So like I was born under a new moon, so there's a chance of me ovulating under the new moon. So that's something I am like keeping in the back of my head, if that makes sense. So
I just want to add that I put in the chat, the Google Meet chat, the link to your moon journal.
Yeah. And I can send you her specific information too. She's from Canada, I believe, or California, one of the two. But she has a Facebook group as well too, which is nice. So like after you purchase from her, you can get in the Facebook group and you can get some more information on how to use this. And you can see other people's like artwork. It's amazing. Like mine is nothing. Like I just use like little symbols. People have like beautiful artwork in theirs, and it's really a great opportunity to like be creative. You're mostly creative around that ovulation time, so you could add a ton of creativity to this. But I really do like how it grounds you with the moon, and it gives you a chance to like set intentions for the moon cycle as well, instead of like, a lot of people talk about at the full moon doing a lot of like intention setting or releasing or whatever, but then like also have an opportunity at the new moon. So maybe you're setting intentions at the new moon, the beginning of your cycle, and by the full moon you're checking in, right? Or something like that. So I really do like it. Like I miss it. I'm ready to go back to it next year, just because she's not going to be offering this anymore. So yeah, I think I did want to show you guys, I should say, be sure that you're getting the journal and not the like wall calendar. The wall calendar is nice, but the journal is really where you can do a lot more like inner work, in my opinion. I do have these really cool altar cards that I wanted to do in person if we were going to be in person. When I first said I was going to do this, I like envisioned us like using these altar cards in the woods and like it being so cool. It's kind of hard to do here, but these give you a chance to like show yourself, what week you are in of your cycle, and then line that up with where the moon is. And then you also have, your Sabbath layout. And then you have, to lay over that, you have the archetypes. So I didn't really talk about this, but like 0 to 25 years old is more like your maiden time. And that's like right after you bleed and you're in your follicular, that springtime, it's like your maiden time when you're like, the possibilities are endless. So like laying that archetype on top of everything else. And then you have the mother, So like I'm really aligned when I'm ovulating on the full moon, and then that because that is like the mother archetype time, and I'm actually in the mother season of my life, which is 25 to 50 years old. And mothering doesn't have to be babies. It can be businesses, creative projects, things like that. And then Maga and Crone. And then it also has cards that line up like the cycle of a rose. So like you have your, bloom, blossom, all of that, death, rebirth. Because you're essentially going through that cycle as well. It can get very interesting, but there's a lot of cycles at play. And the one that is most grounded to you and the one that really is like default is if you're bleeding is that menstrual cycle. And then you have the moon cycle that affects you. And then you have the seasons of the year. And then you have the season of your life, So there's a lot of different cycles we go through, but I really feel like if you are a bleeding person and you aren't in touch with your cycle, you're missing out on extremely important information for you. So just in the short time that I have done it, I've learned so much about myself, and it's been really interesting. I see certain symptoms at the same time every single month that I know are like, oh, hey, you're getting closer to your bleed, that in the past I never was able to tap into because I was either on a pill or pregnant or breastfeeding. And now my life, I told my husband, I feel like I am like waking up to the world. There's days in my cycle where I'm like just sitting outside and feeling the wind on my skin is so much more intense than it's ever been. And they talk about that specifically in Wild Power. And I was just like, holy shit, that is related to my hormones aren't just like flat, you know what I mean? That we change every single day. So yeah, I think that's what I have. Unless there's any other questions. This book, Wild Power, they have a podcast that's, they were the founders of Red School, which is in England, but they have a podcast called Wild Power that you can listen to for free. The audio is not great, but it is free information. And he has Lisa Hendrickson Jack. Her Instagram is really good as well. It's the Instagram is Fertility Friday. And she has a lot of great information. She also has a podcast. It's called Fertility Friday because she does a new podcast every Friday. So those are some two good books. Catherine, have you read some menstrual wisdom books that you really like?
So the ones that I really want, like I always read a lot about a book before I actually read the book.
Yeah.
So I definitely have ones that I would recommend, but even though some of them I haven't been able to get myself yet.
Yeah.
So of ones that I can speak to, obviously Taking Charge of Your Fertility would be one that I recommend for sure.
I feel like this is like the new version of this.
Yeah, from what you were even saying.
Research. Yeah, this has like the most recent research. Like this whole, the whole end of the book here is all references to the research. Like I think that everybody should have this. That is, trying to figure out their cycle. She talks about like what to eat for your period and everything too. Like it's a good one. But it's less about your energy in each cycle and all of that. That's more of this. But Taking Charge of Your Fertility has been a popular one for a while.
And it's easy to find at like any thrift store. Like they're all over at the thrift store for a quarter or whatever. And I mean, sometimes books can be expensive, and I feel like that's part of what has hindered me from getting some of the other ones that I've wanted, because they're more rare or out of print or older, and it's difficult to get a hold of them. For example, Moontime and I think it's called Dark Secrets. Dark something. It's on the list, but on the event book list that I posted. But Moontime in particular by Lucy H. Pierce is really popular, and she also has a book for younger girls, like teen girls that are like just entering their moon time, that sort of, I think it's called like Harnessing your Cycles or something like that. Mm-hmm. She has lots of amazing books, Burning Woman and other things, just lots of really amazing books for the feminine, and Moontime is one that I've read a lot about, and I've read a lot of the quotes from it. I used it a lot in the thing, so I feel like I've read it, but I haven't. So it's just on eBay. It's, I think, been out of print for so long that there's only so many copies, and so they tend to be more than I typically spend on books. Maybe for someone else that's not extensive, like I don't know, I think they might be $15 or something for a used copy on eBay. For me, that's more than I'm usually able to spend on a book, but you know, there may be a Kindle option too or something like that. But those would be the three that I wanted to mention as well. And, you know, like Bonnie said, it sounds very much like the Fifth Vital Sign and Taking Charge are very similar, one maybe being newer than the other, but very similar methods of, you know, tracking your cycles and things like that.
Yeah. This one you can get from the Genesee District Library. I think Linden specifically has it, but I've checked it out before I bought it. So I know you could order that to your library for sure. And the other thing I wanted to say is that this is also a Black author. So if you're like into that right now, like I am, it's like, well, that's an extra reason to purchase this right now. So supporting, I think it's about decolonizing your bookshelf, you know, getting some variety and diversity in your authors on your bookshelf. So, yeah, for sure. The other thing, so Catherine Eden, who created this, who I put in the event, so she has some free offerings, and then her teacher is Jane Hardwick Collins, and she's the one that made these altar cards. She has a ton of stuff for free on her website as well. They're based in Australia. I learned about them through my doula training, so I feel like I'm like in touch with the Australian people that are doing this, but it's still good to have. So Jane has free stuff on her website as well, and I can add that in the chat. And she has a free download that's called the Her Story, which is a really good read just about how history, you know, took us out, took women out of society in different ways, and how we got where we are now. But she also has some menstrual stuff as well. So yeah, I would definitely listen to that episode 63 of Mythic Medicine with Dr. Elizabeth Wade. She totally breaks down how to do the fertility awareness method. And if you're a Patreon subscriber, which I think like $2 a month, you get like the extra bonuses. Or she may have even given them away for free with like charting stuff to download too. So the information's out there for sure. There's a lot of different people. And I follow a lot of good people on Instagram that I can't necessarily think of off the top of my head, but as I see them, I'll try to put them in the Facebook group. So if you're on Instagram, you can follow them too, because it's amazing what I've learned. That's why I decided to buy her book, because I was learning so much from her Instagram post. Same with Beyond the Pill. I was learning so much from hers as well.
Who did you say made those cards?
Her name's Jane Hardwick Collins. So it's JaneHardwickCollins.com.
Okay.
But yeah, she's a midwife in Australia who also does like a witch school or something like that. But she has lots of cool offerings. She has a children's book as well, all about the seasons and the menstrual cycle. And I should have brought that in, so I'll show you guys. But I bought that for the kids too. She's just got a lot of nice helpings. The only bad thing is like shipping from Australia, you know. But she has free stuff on the website too.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah.
I did have a question, Bonnie.
Yeah.
Do you know anything about like how like if your cycle changes, like it used to ovulate at the new moon and then it like changes to the full moon, and like why it keeps shifting like that and what that means?
So in the Beyond the Pill book, she talks about she calls it red. I think she calls it something like red moon bleeding and white moon bleeding or something, but
I almost posted that link to that blog that was going over all of that. Like the same, I almost posted the white and red moon thing. I didn't want to post though.
I know. No, you should definitely post it. But what I remember from reading that section was that so typically, right, your traditional way or whatever was that you would bleed on the new moon when the moon is dark, and all women would bleed together, and then you would ovulate under the full moon, and that's where the whole summer and like party time is. It's actually like you can actually see outside and it's bright and it's safe to be outside and you're not in a tent, you know, at night bleeding like you are under the new moon. But so it's said that if you didn't traditionally bleed that way, that you were often somebody who was a healer or somebody that cared for the people that were bleeding because you bled on the opposite. So you were in your ovulation, productive time in caring for the majority of the people that weren't. So, there's that. So I remember reading like, well, I mean, that would be kind of cool to be thought of like traditionally I was a healer or, you know what I mean? But when the switching, it's fairly common to switch is my understanding. So I would be interested in what that blog post says about like if there's a specific reason behind it. I mean, I will say that people say that the reason that we don't all bleed on the new moon and ovulate on the full moon is related to artificial light and hormones and xenoestrogens and things like that can affect your cycle. But I'm not 100% sure about this switch, so I'd be curious to see if that blog post says. From what I've heard, like I haven't got the feeling that there's anything wrong with that necessarily. So yeah, I wonder if, I mean, it would line up with somebody's situation where maybe they started caregiving more or something like that. So.
May I add an additional thread of thought to everything that you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to also touch on the Ayurvedic end of how a menstrual cycle is seen. And I don't know if all or none of you follow Ayurveda in any form, but it said that a person is constituted of three dosha styles. So there's the three doshas, you have the Vata, the Pitta, and the Kapha. And they all make up a different sort of energy within you. And They can be in balance. Everybody's a little bit different, and you have your particular blend that is you, or you can become imbalanced and use the other doshas to help bring more balance into what you maybe have too much of or too little of. So just to be more specific, you have Vata, which is sort of like your airy thinker, emotional, it's very like up in the air, and it's not very grounded, but if this is your main dosha, like, it serves you very well. This is something that is who you are. You're creative, and you're very like a visionary, for a lack of a better term, and then you have the kapha, which is the very, like, the motherly, grounded energy, rooted. Everyone comes to you with their problems because they can trust you. You know what you're about, but you're also very sensitive. You can sometimes overstep yourself and push yourself too far to be that caregiver, and that sort of thing. And then you have the pitta, which tends to be a leader. You're fiery, you're a go-getter, you're like that type 1 personality, get it done, that sort of person, entrepreneur, that sort of thing. So you can see why when these things are blended together, you can make a really amazing character building for yourself. Like, say you're mainly pitta and you're a go-getter, but you also have a good balance of the vata. You're also able to envision. And it's important for someone that's a go-getter and a visionary to also have that bit of kapha in there to keep them grounded and not become too manic, too out of their element, And so sometimes, just as an example, say that's your blend and you feel yourself getting super spacey, super wired, you can do more kapha things, more warming foods, maybe warmer showers, and it sort of brings you back down to earth. And this is how this is blended. So the point in why I'm saying all of this is because this can relate to our menstrual cycles as well. The doshas can be related to the different the different phases of your menstrual cycle. For example, the vata would be considered your bleeding time. The kapha would be the nourishing, ready to receive, I am whole, bring it to me kind of thing. You're ready to have that fertilized ovum. And then you have the pitta, which is like after ovulation and the hormonal changes that come with that. And people that are pitta dominant, you see a lot of redness in their face. Sometimes they have red hair. They can have like ruddy skin. Kaphas tend to sometimes be overweight. Because they're so grounded, they're comforted by food, that sort of thing. So, point being is that pitta, for example, being after your ovulation, because it's so fiery and so intense and so like red, that's our PMS time. It's, when we have those hormonal changes that are leading to our bleed time. And so it correlates, you have this fiery energy, and it makes sense. Then you have the acne coming out. You have the tense energy coming out, for lack of a better way of putting it, to where there's just a lot of friction internally and externally. And vata being so airy, it makes sense. You're sort of floating. You're kind of not doing much of anything. You're thinking more than actually doing, and it's that time of rest. So I just wanted to sort of like put that out there. And Ayurveda in general tends to also recommend, a lot of more holistic approaches, like we've been talking about as it is. Ways to honor your menstrual cycle from an Ayurvedic approach would be to honor the daily rhythms from your meal times and like the spacing that you have between your meals. Rather than grazing, have a good meal where you feel satisfied and satiated. And give or take this advice, this is just from an Ayurvedic perspective, but, from your meal times to how much sunlight you're getting, like Bonnie was talking about, your sleeping and waking rhythms as well. And
you can like literally sleep with the moon shining in, too.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I've been sleeping because we don't have our curtains up yet in the bedroom and the blind slats, and I'm waking up so much earlier and like feeling better. I mean, I always kind of wake up early, but even just like that extra, I don't know, like half an hour or 45 minutes, it feels like a more natural wake up, and I'm less groggy just because the sun wakes me up, you know?
Yeah.
But then, yeah, gut healing, of course, you know, simple whole foods that are easy to digest and don't aggravate the slowness of the kapha digestion or the irritableness of the pitta digestion, you know, that sort of thing. And just working with your body in its rhythms as we work with the rhythms of the moon as well. So I just wanted to add that perspective as well to everything Bonnie shared.
Yeah.
And I think we should all bleed on it.
Yeah, I like it. I would love to hear, like, if you have any thoughts later or whatever about it, or if you've heard anything differently or anything like that. But I think that it's just it's a specific topic, but it can be so different. Like I said, you can really talk about biology, and you know, or you can talk about, you know, Ayurveda and your energy and things like that. But either way, you're going to get something positive out of being aware of your cycle. So.
Well, I don't know about you guys, but this gave me tons to look up and think about and resource and stuff, and I'm super grateful for Bonnie and Hannah for helping out with speaking tonight.
What I was always told when I learned something was, once you learn this information, it's your obligation to share this with other people who bleed that don't have any information on this. So it's kind of like taking the veil off, you know, in a sense.
I'll apologize in advance that every time my computer was cutting out, it was cutting out the recording too, so the replay is going to be super choppy, but I still got at least an hour, just even if it's chopped up. So I'll post what I can. Erin was texting me at the same time. She's like, oh my gosh, I'm supposed to be on the call right now. I'm like, we're still on. Yeah. So she'll watch this later probably.
Yeah, so tell her if I don't know at what point it was recording or not when I answered her questions, but she can just shoot me a message.
Oh, I didn't hear you saying it. At one point my internet went out completely, so I was like logged off altogether, and it took forever for the internet to come back up. I don't know if you noticed me missing for like 5 minutes.
Yeah, I did. And I also read, the only other thing I remember is I read like a funny thing from the 1960s that was written in tampon boxes that basically said, like, don't take advantage of your husband and rest when you're bleeding, because he married somebody that's supposed to be perky and cheerful every day.
Those things make me want to jump off a cliff.
I know. But I was like, I mean, if that doesn't tell you why we're struggling with this, and you know. So.
Well, I'm seeing Erin tomorrow morning. If you want to message me whatever you want her to know, because I didn't hear it, so I must not have caught it on replay.
You weren't here when she was talking about it.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Perfect timing.
Yeah. Just tell her to send me a message or whatever, and because then that way I can kind of individualize it to her. So, because a lot of what I talked about was libido related to if you're on hormonal birth control, and if she's not, then that won't apply. So.
Okay.
All right.
Well, thank you.
I
will update the I will get with Hannah and Casey in the next couple weeks. I mean, obviously before that, but about this specifically, I will get with them about where we're going to hold the next couple events, and I will update the events soon. Oh, one more thing before we go. I would love to hear, or you can message me later if you want to bleed on it. I totally I'm gonna use it every time. Every time. It's only gonna be super fun with Justin though.
Yeah.
I would love to hear, since we're coming to the end of the pre-scheduled topics, just that I wrote out from like when we started the group in the new year. I would love to hear some topics that you would like to be touched on. just whatever various things interest you, because we can totally take this a different direction than it's been. Like, it doesn't have to be educational. It can just be like tarot parties, or it can be whatever. I was telling Casey, I think it was, that I would really like to do a Samhain get together for all of us. Would be super great. And whoever can't come will light a candle for you. But just an idea where maybe we could celebrate some of the larger Sabbats together every now and again. You know, like we were kind of wanting to do with the kids, but none of that happened because, like, COVID happened as soon as spring happened. So, because we were going to start with Beltane, I think it was, and Ostara, and we never got to do either of those. So I still have little sparkly pink eggs for their Easter egg hunt and their nature scavenger hunt that never happened. So, definitely I would like to do something for Samhain and Halloween if you would so enjoy that. And also I would love to just hear what topics you would like to touch on and what direction you'd like to take it, because we're now coming into the harvest time of the year, and it's a good time to like do something new and get some opinions from the outside as well. I just wanted to post the first several to kind of get us going and get like our regulars going, and now that we have that, I would love to hear your thoughts whenever you think of them, now or later.
I think it depends, like, if we're in person or if we're on here. I think in person we could really tap into, like, that whole just being together and doing whatever. That's really hard for me on here, so it's almost like having a topic if we're on the computer works better in my mind, you know what I mean? Like, you know, these altar cards would have been so cool in person, but so for like the same for tarot, I don't feel like it would just go over as well on the internet.
I feel like you just can't do like a meditation or obviously yoga or cacao or anything on, you know, web conferencing either. For me, even just reading or scripting the meditations feels like forced. I don't know. It just feels awkward, and I feel like nobody's able to really get into a good headspace with their life going on around them. So that's why I haven't continued doing that on web, but in person, you know, for sure.
Yeah. I think for me, I'm interested in like the in-person meets, us like just focusing on all of the in-person activity things that we've been wanting to do the past few months. Like, even if it's like, you know, from a different month when we talked about doing a certain topic, do a certain like meditation together. I don't know, I think focusing on all of the in-person things when we're in person would be fun. Not even necessarily having a theme, but just kind of like celebrating being like a powerful person with a bunch of powerful women, and we just do fun. I don't know, yoga. I'm like down to do yoga and meditation and drinking cacao one time. Like I'll do all those things, and you'll feel so refreshed. And I don't know.
A Google Meet drum circle would be so lame. We're all just like over here on our little bongos. Like, it would have to be in person for that kind of thing.
So I guess it'll just depend, but, you know.
So you're thinking just like gatherings in general, like just...
Yeah,
okay. And then if we have to like go back to Zoom, do more themed like things we're learning about, that kind of thing. Yeah, it's more verbal.
Yeah, and I still think even incorporating learning experiences while we're together, but I think it would be fun to do like tarot cards together and like oracle stuff, like whatever, just focusing on the things that we can't do in person. Even with winter coming, we have no idea what to expect with anything, and we might have a lot of opportunities in winter to focus on learning and growing in that way as well. Too.
Would you guys be interested specifically in like ritual, like water blessings or, you know, things like that, or more of just gatherings specifically? I mean, rituals are gatherings, but...
I'm open to anything really.
Like fire burning ritual, like burning intentions, or like I said,
for sure.
water blessings for the earth, or that kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm into that too.
Ooh, just started pouring.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that gives me some good ideas. And lastly, for in-person meets, say they're in either Linden or Swartz Creek, what times are best for your families? Because I know some like to be home for bedtime, some don't need to be, etc.
I think, didn't we have it a little earlier before? Like, I was thinking like 6 o'clock seemed more doable.
Yeah, I was setting the event for when the moon crested, so that my thought was we would go out and, you know, if we wanted to do a full moon walk on our way out, we could do that sort of thing. But that was, you know, much earlier in the year, so now it's like the moon crests at like 12:15 in the morning or something. So yeah, whatever time is fine now for sure.
I just think like that one time we did meet in person, like we ran out of time and I wanted to stay longer, and you know, so starting earlier almost seems better to me in a way.
I'm down with that too, and I feel like our husbands can manage dinner without us if we need to for one night. That's how I'm looking at that too.
Yeah, for sure.
So are you saying 5 or 6?
Either for me. It just depends on work right now for Ryan, but and I feel like probably 6.
6 would be safe to be able to get there in time.
Yeah, I would say so too. Especially if it's at my parents' house, because I'm 35 minutes from my parents' house now. So, which is still fine.
My main issue now is for me to get there and set up in advance. I'm already an hour away from either of you, and Justin doesn't get home till at least 5. So that makes it difficult. But I could potentially, I don't know, stick Lorelai.
We can help you with setup and stuff like that.
Andrew.
And it doesn't have to be elaborate setups either. Like, we can all work together and like plan it, so it's not like you doing a lot of the setting up. Like, we'll manage it together. And and if it came to it for me, like if it were like a certain Sunday near a full moon in the afternoon, more when we know our husbands are home or whatever, I would be open to doing it not necessarily on the actual date of the full moon.
And doing a weekend?
Yeah, like a Sunday or something. Like a Sunday, so we don't feel like we're taking away from our families in that way too.
Okay, that's an idea. Okay, well, thank you for the input. And I am going to go watch Outlander for a little bit, so I hope you guys enjoyed everything, and thank you for all being here with me, as always.
Yeah, thanks you for hosting again.
Love you guys.
Bye.
Good night.
So say hi.
Good night, Cora.
Can you say good night?
Are you in your ballerina dress?
Bye, guys.
Bye, Casey.